Good morning, students. Today in this class, we will start discussing calcium homeostasis and bone physiology. In this specific class, we will learn the structure and functional anatomy of bones, the process of bone remodeling, cells involved into it, then the mechanism of maintenance of calcium balance of the body, and different hormones, enlistment of different hormones involved into this calcium homeostasis. So today is our introductory class of calcium homeostasis. So let us start with the topic. At first, let's have a look how the body calcium is distributed in different pools. In our body, there is almost 1100 grams of calcium in total. Amongst this huge amount, 99% of calcium is stored in bones and teeth as hydroxyapatite crystals. Hydroxyapatite crystals is basically made up of calcium and phosphate. The formula being, as you are seeing, Ca10PO4 whole 6 OH twice. So in this form, calcium is stored in skeletal tissue almost 99%. And in extraskeletal portion of the body, there is only 1% of total body calcium. Now, in this 99% of skeletal pool of calcium, there are again two compartments. 99% of total skeletal calcium is stored as stable pool, which is kept in the mature bones. Stable in that sense, it is not exchangeable or mobilizable normally in normal situation. Only under the influence of certain calcitropic hormones, this calcium can be mobilized. So this is called stable pool, 99% of skeletal calcium. But 1% of skeletal calcium remains in a readily exchangeable pool, which is kept in the newly formed bones in labile form. This is just like the currency in our parts. Whenever there is fall or rise, readjustment can be done with this readily exchangeable pool. So this is the distribution of calcium in the skeletal tissue. Now the extraskeletal pool, that is 1% of total body calcium, as you are seeing, is again kept in different intracellular portions in subcellular organelles as well as within extracellular fluid including blood plasma. Now it is the plasma calcium, which is almost 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter, is responsible for different metabolic and neuronal activities of calcium in our body. So this is very crucial to maintain the plasma calcium within this physiological range, that is 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter. So let us see how this balance or homeostasis of calcium level in our body is maintained. Now, before going to discuss the mechanism of calcium balance maintenance, let us have a look how the plasma calcium is distributed in different compartments. I have already told you that total plasma calcium is 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter. Amongst this, almost 41% remains bound with plasma protein, and therefore it is non-diffusible, 41% of plasma calcium. 9% remains bound to different anions like citrate, phosphate. It is bound, but it is diffusible as it is bound to different anions. And remaining 50% of plasma calcium is in form of ionized calcium, which is diffusible as well as free. And this ionized calcium is basically the regulator of secretion of different calcitropic hormones, which on the other hand readjust the calcium levels of the body. So with this discussion, now let us come to the point how calcium balance is maintained in our body. Physiological roles of calcium, before to that you must have a look. You all know what are the functions of calcium in our body. First and foremost function is to give structural support, as it is the major component of skeletal tissue of the body. So it is one of the most important component of bone and teeth and forms the skeletal structure. It also helps in development of different soft tissue structure of the body also. And not only the structural support, calcium is also involved in different metabolic activity. It is one of the important second messengers of our body, which acts as an intermediary for different hormonal actions. It helps in hemostasis and overall blood coagulation. It is involved in different neuronal activity like neuronal transmission, neuromuscular transmission, excitation, contraction, coupling of skeletal, cardiac as well as smooth muscle. It helps in contraction of different muscles, skeletal, smooth as well as cardiac muscles. Calcium is grossly involved in healing procedure and wound repair. Calcium is involved in secretion of glandular tissue as well as exocytosis of different cellular granules. So these are the overall functions of calcium. So to have an uninterrupted activities of calcium, the body calcium, plasma calcium most specifically, must be kept within a physiological limit. Now let us see how the calcium balance is maintained in our body. One thing I must tell you, that in normal situation in adulthood there remains a neutral calcium balance. That means neither any gross retention or loss of calcium from the body occur. Body finally adjusts the gain and loss of calcium in normal situation. But this neutral calcium balance may shift in different situation to positive calcium balance as well as negative calcium balance under influence of different calcitropic hormones or other hormones of the body. Most commonly in growing age, in adolescent or in the period where the active growth occurs in the body, there occurs a positive calcium balance. That means retention of calcium is more than the excretion. But in old age there occurs a negative calcium balance, and almost throughout the life there occurs a neutral calcium balance. So how this balance is maintained? See, through the diet we almost ingest 25 millimole of calcium per day, from which almost 15 millimole is absorbed through the gastrointestinal tract, and again 12.5 millimole is secreted out, and overall 22.5 millimole is excreted through feces. So a total of 2.5 millimole we are seeing is being gained in this diagram, but that 2.5 millimole is again excreted through urine. Extracellular calcium is almost 35 millimole, which is kept almost constant by different interactions between different pools of calcium of the body. Through the glomerulars, almost 250 millimole of calcium is filtered every day, from where to 47.5 millimole is reabsorbed. So 2.5 millimole of calcium is excreted out through urine. That means that 2.5 which was gained through diet, here through the urine it is excreted out. So there occurs no gain or no gross loss of calcium from the body. Now this ECF calcium, that is 35 millimole, remains in a dynamic balance with different pools of calcium of the bone. I have already mentioned you, there occurs a rapidly exchangeable pool which contains a huge amount, that is almost 500 millimole of calcium. This rapidly exchangeable pool of calcium in between extracellular fluid and bone is basically acts as a buffer system which does not allow the calcium level to go beyond the physiological limit. Immediate replenishment of the calcium level occurs through this exchangeable pool. And from the stable pool, where there occurs 27200 millimole of calcium, there occurs a constant resorption as well as deposition of bone throughout the life, but in normal situation these two are in a accurate balance. No gross deposition, no gross resorption is occurring. This is called bone remodeling. Almost these two portions are almost the same, 7.5 millimole. Now this is almost the scenario of calcium balance in our body. This values, that is millimole, I have mentioned over here. It is the chart given in Ganong. You can depict this in milligram per dl unit also, which is given in different books like Guyton. But the balance, the scenario is all the same in every depiction. So this is the maintenance of calcium balance of our body. Now one thing I must tell you, that the deposition of calcium, that is absorption of calcium from the diet, excretion of calcium from the body, deposition of calcium from the extracellular fluid to the bone, and resorption of calcium from the bone to the extracellular fluid, everything under influence of different calcitropic hormones. So basically the maintenance of calcium balance is achieved through the interaction of different organs of the body like gastrointestinal tract, like kidney and bones. These three are the principal organ systems of the body which are responsible for regulating calcium levels of body: intestine, bone and kidney. And the major hormones which are responsible for the calcium balance to be maintained are parathyroid hormone, vitamin D or calcitriol and calcitonin. Not only these, there are certain other hormones which are indirectly involved in regulating calcium balance, including growth hormone, glucocorticoid hormone, gonadal hormones like estrogen, testosterone, thyroid hormone, etc. And there are certain other recent molecules like alpha klotho derived from the fibroblasts are also involved intricately in maintenance of blood calcium. So we will discuss gradually all of these hormones and their roles in calcium homeostasis. Now after knowing about calcium balance, let us discuss something about structure of bones. From the histological discussion in anatomy, you all know that long bone has got certain parts. At two ends there are two growing part or growing end. It is called epiphysis, and in between the portion of the shaft is called diaphysis. In between epiphysis and diaphysis there is a cartilaginous plate called epiphyseal plate, which gradually elongates to increase the height of the body in the growing age. And when the epiphyseal cartilage is totally used up and totally fused with the bone, there occurs closure of epiphyseal plate and no further increment in height is possible. And the skeletal structure of the body is that a huge portion of the long bones are composed of cortical bones or compact bones, and a minor fraction is made up of trabecular bone. Now, in the compact bone, there is Haversian system, which is made up of a Haversian canal at the center, which is surrounded by concentric layers of collagen and ground substances like proteoglycans, which is basically made up of chondroitin sulfate, hyaluronic acid, etc. So these are the Haversian system. At the center there is Haversian canal which lodges the nutrient artery, and surrounding which there are concentric layers of collagen impregnated with ground substances and calcium salts, hydroxyapatite crystals called osteoid. This is the Haversian system. And within this compact bone there are presence of different bone cells, namely osteoblast, osteocytes and osteoclasts. The functions of these three different cells are grossly different. Osteoblast, which is derived from the fibroblast, which is basically the modified fibroblasts, is responsible for bone deposition or bone formation. Osteoclast is responsible for bone resorption, and osteocyte is basically the old osteoblast which is confined or which is occluded within the osteoid with the canalicular system communicating with the surface osteoblasts. When these old occluded osteoblasts are situated within the osteoid tissue, they are called osteocytes. Now here is the position of various bone cells. Osteoblast, as you are seeing here, is situated on the surface of the bones, cortical bones. Osteocytes are situated within the Haversian system, confined all round by the osteoid tissue and communicating with the surface, that is surface osteoblasts, with the canalicular system. And osteoclasts are the cells which are also located on the surface at a specific site where bone resorption is supposed to occur. Now something about osteoclasts. Osteoclasts, as you are seeing from this diagram, is basically a multinucleated phagocytic cell derived from proosteoclasts or monocytes under the influence of different ligands or different hormones like PTH, that I will be discussing in detail later. So these osteoclasts, when gets attached to the bone surface, there occurs projection of different villus like structure, giving the cell a ruffled appearance, and at the ruffled border the bone underneath undergoes lysis by the different proteolytic enzymes and acids liberated by the osteoclast locally, and there occurs a depression where the bone resorption actually occurs, giving rise to resorption pocket. And all this activity of osteoclast are basically promoted or stimulated by the influence of certain hormones like parathyroid hormone in specific situation. Not in everyday situation, not in every point of time, but in demanding situation. So osteoclasts are the cells which are responsible for bone resorption. Now here is a flow chart showing how the osteoclasts are stimulated and differentiated from its precursor cells under the influence of parath hormone. This diagram I will be discussing and elaborating later in the context of parathyroid hormone. But one thing I must tell you in this context, that though osteoclasts are under the influence of parathyroid hormone, depends on parathyroid hormone for its stimulation and activity, there is no specific receptor for parathyroid hormone over the osteoclast. Parathyroid hormone stimulate osteoclasts in an indirect way through osteoblast. Osteoblasts, under the influence of parathyroid hormone, secretes certain ligand called rank ligand, which attaches to its specific receptor, that is rank, over the pro-osteoclast, which undergoes differentiation to form active osteoclast, which is responsible for the bone resorption. So this is the theme of action of parathyroid hormone for the stimulation of osteoclast, that I will be discussing again in elaboration in the context of parathyroid hormone. Now something about bone remodeling. What do you mean by that? Bone remodeling is a process comprising of bone deposition as well as bone resorption. These two processes, though contradictory, simultaneously run throughout the life in different segments of bone with no resultant growth or resorption of bones of the body. Bone remodeling is done by the specific cells. Deposition is done by that is osteoblasts, I have already mentioned, and bone resorption is done by osteoclasts. Now their specific mode of action is different, and their influence of certain hormones also. But one thing for sure, that these two processes repair and replenish everyday wear and tear of bones, but in normal adult life there is no gross deposition or resorption occur. But in certain stages of life, bone remodeling process may shift to any specific site. Like in the growing age, the bone deposition process takes the upper hand, whereas in old age, resorption is the most predominant process. Women after menopause suffers more from bone resorption than bone deposition, so there occurs gross osteoporosis. So this is the shifting of bone remodeling balance. But in normal adult life, these two processes go simultaneously, go parallelly and equally with no specific shifting. Now in these two diagrams, in the left panel you are seeing how the bone deposition occurs. How the bone deposition occurs? Bone deposition basically done by osteoblast, I have told you. In the initial stage of bone production, there is secretion of collagen, or to be precise, collagen monomers, which is laid down by the osteoblast itself, and the ground substances are laid down in between them. Ground substances means proteoglycans, which includes hyaluronic acid, chondroitin sulfate, etc. Now these laid down collagens polymerize rapidly to form the collagen fibers, and the resultant tissue is called the osteoid. Now this osteoid has got an enormous affinity for the calcium salts, over which the calcium salts in form of hydroxyapatite crystals can precipitate to give rise to complete bone formation. Calcium salts begin to precipitate on the surface of the collagen fibers within a few days of osteoid formation. The precipitation first appeared at the intervals along each collagen fiber, forming a minute nidus that rapidly multiply and grow over a period of days and weeks into finished product, that is hydroxyapatite crystals. Though the process of bone deposition is not precisely known, but regulation of this process is somehow explained by the presence of different chemical substances in the surrounding. There remains a substance called pyrophosphate, which inhibits hydroxyapatite crystallization and calcification of bone. The levels of pyrophosphate in turn are regulated by osteoblast itself through different chemical other substances. So what I have told, the bone deposition, that is calcification of osteoid tissue, is kept under check, is prevented by pyrophosphate. Pyrophosphate actually maintains the solubility of calcium and phosphate in the surrounding, and it prevents hydroxyapatite crystals to be deposited over the collagens. But when these pyrophosphate molecules are removed or dissolved, the hydroxyapatite crystals can be deposited and crystallization can really occur of the osteoid tissue. And what is that molecule which dissolutes pyrophosphate? This is tissue non-specific alkaline phosphatase, which is a substance secreted by osteoblast itself, which breaks down pyrophosphate and keeps its level in check so that calcification can occur whenever needed. So this is also secreted by osteoblast so that bone calcification can go on. Tissue non-specific alkaline phosphatase is secreted by osteoblast into osteoid to neutralize pyrophosphate, and once the pyrophosphate has been neutralized, the natural affinity of the collagen fibers for calcium salts causes hydroxyapatite crystallization. The importance of tissue non-specific alkaline phosphatase in bone mineralization is established through the experiment, where it is found that in mice where there is genetic deficiency of TNAP, the pyrophosphate levels becomes too high and the animals are born with soft bones which are inadequately calcified. So removal of pyrophosphate is a must for bone calcification to occur. Now the osteoblast also secretes two other substances that regulate bone calcification. These are nucleotide pyrophosphatase phosphodiesterase 1, NPP1, which produces pyrophosphate outside the cell, and ankylosis protein or ANK, which contributes to extracellular pool of pyrophosphate by transporting it from the interior to the surface of the cell. Deficiencies of these two, that is NPP1 or ANK, cause decreased extracellular pyrophosphate and excessive calcification of bone, such as bone spurs, or even calcification of other tissues and tendons, ligaments and spine, which occur in people with form of arthritis called ankylosing spondylitis. So these are the substances, as I have mentioned, liberated by osteoblast for controlling bone formation. Substances favoring bone deposition are tissue non-specific alkaline phosphatase, which basically neutralizes pyrophosphate molecules so that collagen monomers can polymerize. Ground substances like proteoglycans, hyaluronic acid, chondroitin sulfase can be deposited, and hydroxyapatite crystals can be deposited over the osteoid tissue. Now the substances inhibiting bone deposition: nucleotide pyrophosphate phosphodiesterase NPP1 and ankylosis protein, which favors the formation of pyrophosphate basically. So this is the process of bone deposition or bone formation by the osteoblast. Now something about bone resorption by osteoclasts. I have already mentioned you that under the influence of parathyroid hormone as well as indirectly vitamin D, there occurs differentiation and proliferation of pro-osteoclasts into osteoclasts. But one thing you must remember, I am telling it again, that osteoclast does not have any receptor for PTH directly. Rather, osteoblasts have receptor for parathyroid hormone as well as vitamin D. Under the influence of these hormones, osteoblast releases certain substance like rank ligand, which attaches to the specific receptor rank, receptor activator of nuclear factor kappa beta. Rank, the full form of rank. Rank ligand is the ligand and its receptor is called rank, which is present over the proosteoclasts. Now proosteoclast, when bound to rank ligand through its specific receptor rank, there occurs proliferation and differentiation of proosteoclast into activated osteoclast. Also there occurs interaction of MCSF, which also stimulate proliferation of proosteoclast. Now when the proosteoclast is developed into osteoclast, there occurs formation of ruffled border by projection of villus, liberation of proteolytic enzymes from the lysosomes, also the acid secreted from the granules of the osteoclast, forming a desorption pocket in a localized area of the bone where dissolution of the bone occur and resorption takes place. So this is how the osteoclastic resorption of bone takes place. These two, that is bone resorption by osteoclast and bone deposition of osteoblast, maintains an accurate balance in normal day-to-day life with no gross shifting to any specific direction. This is called bone remodeling, and a localized area where the bone remodeling occurs over the surface of a bone involving both bone forming cells as well as bone resorbing cell like osteoblast and osteoclast respectively is called a bone remodeling units. There are multiple bone remodeling units remain over the cortical bones. Now these two processes, bone formation as well as bone resorption, are under influence of different hormones. Bone resorption first is stimulated by parathyroid hormone, vitamin D, cortisol, thyroxine, prostaglandins, interleukin 1 and 6, whereas bone resorption is inhibited by estrogen, androgen, calcitonin, transforming growth factor beta, interferon, nitric oxide. Estrogen is one of the important factor which prevents bone resorption. So after the menopause, where estrogen level falls in women often suffers from excessive bone resorption, osteoclastic bone resorption, which is basically mediated by the absence of osteoprotegerine, OPG. So there is every chance of osteoporosis after menopause. Now bone formation is favored by growth hormone, insulin-like growth factor, testosterone, estrogen, transforming growth factor beta, skeletal growth factor, bone-derived growth factor, calcitonin, parathyroid hormone, and bone formation is grossly inhibited by cortisol. So these are the hormonal influences on different processes of bone remodeling, that is bone deposition and bone resorption. So whenever you are to discuss bone remodeling, you must tell about these two processes individually and the hormonal influences over them. So students, this much today, where we learned about the distribution of body calcium in different pools and how the calcium balance is maintained in our body, different calcitropic hormones and different organs involved into it. We learnt about the bone physiology, different bone cells and their roles. We learnt about bone remodeling, the process of bone remodeling and hormonal influences on bone remodeling. In next class, we will be discussing about different calcitropic hormones. Thank you all. If any query, please put your questions in the WhatsApp group. I will try to answer all of them. Thank you all.